to bring Egypt down. That was God's weapon for Moses. That staff took Egypt down. No spears, no weapons of axes, and weapons of modern warfare of that day of Egypt. Took Egypt down. A simple shepherd's staff. Now God's taken down this globalist, satanic, new world order of the day. Raised up Trump to take it down. And there's been a lot of resistance, like I said, to certain Christians. I'll put that certain quotes, Christians, that have been on the fence or else been highly critical of the man. But this is who God's chosen vessel is. Like you heard me state earlier. He was prophesied by Kim Clement and Mark Taylor. This is God's chosen vessel. And God's ways are not our ways. This is an insider He raised up that know how these people think, how they move, how they operate. Just like Moses, God raised up to bring Pharaoh down. Do you think Moses could have access to the Pharaoh's court and just walk up in the Pharaoh? Try walking up in any king's court, or even our president, without an appointment. See how far you get. He was an insider. That's what gave him access to the Pharaoh. He was going to be the next Pharaoh of Egypt. He had respect for being an insider. He had access. Now, we're going to go from Moses, now that you understand that, to another insider. We're going to go to Daniel. So turn to Daniel 5:11. Here's another insider. Now I call people that work inside government Daniels. That's worshiping God, serving Christ, and their allegiance is to the Word of God, not to the kingdoms of this earth or to the to government. And I call them Daniels. There was nobody more faithful as a bureaucrat than Daniel. He did his job, but his allegiance was to God. And there's a line he wouldn't cross. If my work for you interfere with my worship of God and what God said not to do, that's where I draw a line in the sand, and he did. He wouldn't bow to a pagan God. He said, I worship my God. Now, I'll do my job and performance of duty, but I'm not going to bow to your pagan gods. And that's what got him thrown into the lion's den. So there's a point where Daniels don't go beyond. And that's the problem. We got a lot of so-called fake Christians got to line up to get the mark of the beast when the time comes. Be the first in line. It's supposed to be resistant and rebels to this false beast Antichrist. I'm drawing a blank on Daniel, I'm sorry. All right, Daniel 5:11, I said. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth. Now, this world is not our home. This is what a Christian's supposed to be. But we can, you got to work, you got to eat. That's where, if you happen to work in government, there's a line in the sand you don't cross. And I don't care if you're a Christian cop or if you're a Christian soldier on the battlefield. You operate within the perimeter of the law, no matter where you're at. If I'm a soldier on the battlefield, I'm trained up on orders to kill the enemy, I'm going to kill the enemy. I'm not going to pull out a Bible and say, thou shalt not kill. and misquote the scripture. That's murder. It ain't got nothing to do with war. I know I can kill in war. I can kill to defend my house. Somebody, a burglar coming through the window. He's going to meet a hail of bullets. I'm not going to preach a sermon to him. See, that's the problem with Christianity. It's gotten so far off base. They've become useless blobs. Their passivity is getting them killed. This nation was founded like a state of the earth by pilgrims with gunpowder and a musket in one hand and a Bible in the other. Those who wouldn't have a nation. With the sorry lot bunch today call themselves Christians. Conscientious objectors. Well, anyways, getting off topic here. Back on Daniel. Now, 5:11. There is a man in the kingdom in whom the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of thy father light and understanding, and wisdom like the wisdom of the gods was found in him. He's talking about Daniel. Now this is Belshazzar. His name's sometimes Nebuchadnezzar's son. And he's asking about, I need a magi, a magician. That's what they call. That's where the word comes from. It means wise men. To come give me some advice. A hand showed up on his kingdom while they was having an orgy and doing their sexual rites with their pagan gods, and they pulled some of God's utensils out for storage to use in their pagan rituals that was taken from the temple when God led his people into bondage. That's why they're there. That's why Daniel's there. He was of Zedekiah's court. He's a prince, son of a king. Anyway, he became a eunuch in the king's court. He castrated you and became a eunuch. Now, he wanted somebody with wisdom, and Daniel stood out. Like I said, Daniel was with God. He's a Hebrew, but he's working. And you didn't get, just like Egypt, ancient Babylon is the center, the epicenter of paganism. You couldn't get more pagan than Babylon. That's where Nimrod's home. It's where he's from, ancient Chaldea. So now you're dealing with the kingdom of Babylon. Now the kingdom of Babylon around 500 BC, just like you had the kingdom of Egypt, and that reigned from 3100 BC. And then the Assyrian Empire took over after that, after the fall of the Egyptian Empire, but they were still recognized as an empire. They just didn't have world power and domination. Then after the Assyrian, you had the Babylonian Empire again under Nebuchadnezzar. And this is around 500 BC. This is where Daniel is. And the gods of Babylon, the same gods, the same ancient occult, just different names. You had Marduk, well, I call it Marduk, spelled M-A-R-D-U-K. You had Anu. Anu is the moon goddess. Same Samaritans. Her name is Anu. And you had Ninyas, N-I-N-Y-E-S. Same as Tammuz, the resurrected sun god. Same pagan religion. This is what Daniel was raised in. Daniel would be 33 and a third or something, or whatever. The higher masonry degrees would be equivalent in his day. He'd be equivalent to that. Equivalent to that. He knew all the rites, rituals, everything of that day. Now, he was a chief magician, Daniel. He was over the magician. He actually saved the magician's life when Nebuchadnezzar was going to kill him because he had a dream that needed interpreting. He was going to kill Daniel and the rest of them, all the other magicians. It was Daniel that saved the magicians. They were all part of the same court. The astronomers, the astrologers, the soothsayers, all of them. I went to flesh and blood on this. Now, I just gave you the gods of Babylon that Daniel was a part of or raised in. Now, like I said, he worshiped, the God of heaven and earth. And it was a line he wouldn't bow to their pagan idols and their gods. And he was allowed as part of the king, but he knew, like I said, I'm telling you, he knew. And he was part of the king's court. He was fully aware. These was his comrades. Read it for yourself. That's what I'm trying to tell you. He was part of the king's court, a pagan. But he, like I said, his allegiance was to God of the Hebrews, God of the Bible. For as much, verse 12, this is Daniel 5:12. For as much as excellent spirit and knowledge, and understanding and interpreting of dreams, and showing of hard sentences, and dissolving of doubts, were found in the same Daniel, whom now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation. Then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, Art thou Daniel, which art of the children of captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? I have even heard of thee, that the spirit of the gods. See how they're looking at it? They're looking from a pagan's perspective. He just got more clout than the other magicians with the gods. That's all. He's not looking at him, the God of heaven and earth. Now Nebuchadnezzar found out the hard way about the God of the Hebrews, that he is the God of the heaven and earth. He drove him off his throne, which is a historical fact, and had him out there eating like a wild ox and kind of looking like one with the wild beasts, eating grass. Cud out there with them. Drove him insane. They say his purity went insane. He was out there with them. He was looking wild. That was God, because he got caught up in pride. And God sets up, get my teaching God's despots, the video. God sets up these kings. These are his despots. That's what I taught him. And I use the Bible as reference. God's in control. He was very well, God's in control when Hitler was down here. That's his despot. God said he sets the basis of men up to rule the earth. Cutthroat killers. Cold-hearted, beastly type men. And Nebuchadnezzar was one, and his son. These are ruthless killers. And Daniel was brought in before the king. And the king spake unto Daniel, Art thou Daniel, who art of the children of captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? I have even heard of thee that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. Now they're not looking at it light from your perspective. They're looking at it like an enlightenment, like what the Masons teach, Illuminati. These are the mystery school. Always keep that in mind with these people. This is ancient mystery school, Hermetic teaching. And the problem with most Christians, they don't have a clue what I'm talking about, because they don't read no books. But the people in power do. They know your religion forward and backwards. Matter of fact, a lot of them create religion. That's what they do. Only one religion they can't touch is the pure faith of God, of this Bible, this book here. You can't touch it. Now, all of the religions they create and control. Satan's the God of this world. He's over. He's the one they worship and follow. including this pagan heathen king we're reading about here. And that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, pay close attention. And now the wise men, I told you what wise men are, magi, magicians, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, and they could not read this writing, and make known unto me the interpretation. Therefore, but they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of thee, that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now, if thou canst read the writing, and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and thou shalt be third ruler of the kingdom. This is what he says. I'm going to give you a promotion. You faithful bureaucrat in my kingdom. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself. He said, I don't want your gifts. Keep them to yourself. And give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known unto him interpretation. O thou king, the most high, God, let him know who's the boss. The most high God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom, and majesty, and glory, and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. He's God of the whole earth, a little g. And feared before him, whom he would slew, and whom he would keep alive. He had the power of life and death. All kings did. Like, you heard me taught on a little bit on heraldry in one of the videos. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was dealing with Esther. But get the video, Esther. But the king had power. He could, if he held his staff a certain way, you would have one of his eunuchs or one of his captain of the guards, soldiers come and chop your head off right in front of the king. When you stood before the king, you stood in front of life and death. He had the power. If he was pissed, you could die right away and kill your whole family. So the king was greatly revered in these ancient kingdoms. And to be in the king's court was a very, very high honor. And people that was in there, believe me, they were excellent brown nosers. Because they didn't want to piss the king off. I mean, you read about the Pharaoh throwing his servants. I think it was the baker, or Joseph was in there, the baker, and the cupbearer of the wine that screwed up, and they were thrown into the dungeon. And then the Pharaoh, after years of them being in there, decided to bring them out. And one he promoted, brought out back to being a cupbearer again. The other one, he hung, the baker. Power, life, and death. If you screw up on the job, you weren't just fired. You were executed. Spill some wine on the king's robes, they just killed you. The penalty was death. So you had the creme of the creme, the best of the best servants around, knowing the penalty was death for screwing up. Then Daniel said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself. I don't want your gifts. And give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known to him the interpretation. O thou king, the most high gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom, and majesty, and glory, and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages trembled, and feared before him, whom he would have slew, and whom he would kept alive, he kept alive. And whom he set up, he promoted people, he took people down, he demoted them. And whom he put down. And when his heart was lifted up, and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. And he was driven from the sons of men. That's what I told you. And it's a historical fact. You can look it up in history. They got it in ancient tablets of Egypt. Ancient Talmud of Egypt. This is a fact. I deal in facts with God's word, historical facts. And God's word has been proven. numerous times through archaeology, through history, through science, to be fact, not fiction. God said, that's what Brother Jay's about, improving up God's word. Like I said, all you got to do is open that cage up like a lion and let it out. God's word proves itself accurate over and over again. And man a liar. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beast, and his dwelling was with the wild asses. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High ruled in the kingdom of men. God rules in the kingdom of men. Like I said, he set up kings and tear down kings himself. Like he did this king. God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over it whomsoever he will. God's the boss. Now God appointed Trump. And for you fat-mouthed Christians out there, understand, and I just read to you God's word. So march and keep your, march and keep your mouth shut. I have to check myself. Almost went into street mode on it, because he pissed me off with this constant fat-mouthing of our president that God raised up. And this is a godly nation. Then we ain't even talking about pagan king. Now God talking about he picks and chooses whom he wants to reign around this earth, no matter how hideous of a monster these rulers are. God gave them their throne. Understand that. Now, I believe Trump's a good man, person. But even if he was an Attila the Hun, God raised him up. Said, you know. He's a man with faults just like we all. He's a sinner like all. He got skeletons, causes like all. But God raised him up. Deal with it. Read this again for the hard of hearing. One more time. And when you complain against him, you're complaining against God's choice. Just let you know, you rebels. Just like, get my teaching on Saul versus David. Another rebel in the Bible. He wanted to do it his way. He didn't like God's choice. God raised up David. Saul didn't like it. Persecuted. You see what happened at the end game with Saul. How God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over the kingdom whom he will. And end the subject. Now I'm going to use one more example. The title of this, God's Chosen Vessels. The inside. This is a God inside. Trump is God's inside. March and keep your mouth shut. Loudmouth Christians out there, critical, super critics. Esther. Another insider. Now, you talking about a pagan kingdom. Esther was married to Xerxes of the Medo-Persian Empire. And that empire, around his time, he was reigning 519 BC. Cyrus the Great. God said, I called Cyrus, this is 400 years before, in the book of Isaiah. And Jeremiah mentions Cyrus. I called Cyrus, he called him his servant. This is my servant. 400 years before Cyrus was born, God named him. Told him what his name going to be. And they showed Cyrus that, Cyrus the Great, for the Medo-Persian Empire. Even he was a babe. God said, I'm the boss. I raise up you just read in Daniel where he said, I appoint these leaders. I raise them up. I give them their kingdom. This is God talking. Get by teaching God's despots. Let God do what he wanted to. Men weren't far from perfect. They'll chop your head off. They had no problem with it. They were killers. They're God's killers. Deal with it. Now, Esther. Like I said, Esther was married. Now, Esther's name, she was queen. She was a Hebrew of the Hebrew people. Get my teaching on Esther. I'm not going to teach on the whole book of Esther. But Esther was queen, and being queen, she also was looked at as, you're not just a king and a queen, you're also a deity of a type. And same with her. She went through the mystery school religion. She had to learn those pagan rites herself. She was an insider. Now her name is known as Amistris. Amistris is her Persian name, not Esther. Married to Xerxes. And like I said, Esther was a very beautiful woman, Hebrew. And this king had many concubines and wives. But she was the number one queen, the number one woman on the throne. He had a harem of women. Now, their religion was Zoroaster. Now, you couldn't get more. It is a religion of sexual rites, orgies. Pagan than that. They were truly pagan. And they basically had two gods, a duality. They believed, they had lined up a lot with what these Masons teach, dualism, black and white. A dualism. Good deeds outweighing bad. Sexual, and they were big on sexual rights, like I stated. The name of their god, these are hard names. Ahura Mazda was the god of light. Ahura Mazda. We get the Mazda car. Remember that back in the day. And he was the good god, the god of light. See, this is lines up a lot with the Masons. And then you had the evil god of darkness and death, which is Harumim. Aharimim. That's close enough. But these are their two main gods. The god of darkness and light. Just like Lucifer and Satan. The duality, the light bearer. And that's what this religion was saying, was similar to the synagogue of Satan religion, the Masons today. This duality thing. Now, this was her religion. And she was the queen, in quotes, queen in that religion. And we're going to read. Now, Esther was an insider. If it wasn't for Esther, you had an evil, downright evil man that was raised up in the kingdom that wanted to wipe the Jews out. And if it wasn't for Esther, they would have been wiped out. She was in position of power, an insider in quotes. And if it wasn't for her being on the inside, the Jews as a people, he wanted to wipe all of them out from under the sun. The evil Haman, his name was Haman. And Haman got hung on the very gallows that he wanted, 70-foot gallows, and 70 feet high. The very gallows he built to hang Mordecai on, which was Esther's uncle. Mordecai wouldn't bow to him. Mordecai only bowed to God. But anyway, that was her uncle. And he wanted to destroy the whole Jewish people that was in captivity. And that's why they were in the kingdom, Medo-Persia. And he wanted to destroy them. But Esther, being an insider, saved her people. And Haman ended up getting hanged on his own scalp. The Bible said God catches the wicked in his own craftiness and snare them in their own traps. That's what's happening now. You had an evil globalist plan to wipe us Christians out and put us in FEMA camp. And you don't know how close we came. And God raised up Trump as a doorstop to give the church more time to get it together. Time is basically up. God granted an extension of His grace because a lot of us are not ready for Christ's second coming. You don't be left here to deal with that Antichrist. The Antichrist is not going to play with you. You can't mile your faith to him. You got to get your head chopped off, be tortured before that even happens. And that's the time you don't want to be down. So you need to get it together now. And understand, these are God's chosen insiders. And stop your fat mouthing of God's choice, critical. They're men, just like us, and they're not perfect, just like us. They're going to make mistakes along the way, just like us. And they're surrounded, in some cases, with godless men, just like us. So give them a break. This is God's choices. And I hope this message resonates with you, that actually pitted yourself against God and not knowing it. And being super critical of who He rose up. I just showed you in the Bible. Rewind it and play it again if you didn't get it. That's for the hard end. All right. If I'm the one that taught you, give. Go to streetpriestministry.org and hit that donate button. That's only if I taught you. Bring your tithes, first fruit, alabaster box, and street priest. Give my teaching on if you don't know what I'm talking about. All right, good day, good evening, good night to you around the world. May you grow in faith. In Jesus' name.